Today, I'm speaking with Sarina Baptista. I met Sarina at the IANDS Conference, International Association for Near-Death Studies. Sarina is an award-winning author, international speaker, spiritual teacher, and evidential psychic medium. She has 2 award-winning books, Finding Love and Purpose and My View from Heaven. She was a featured speaker for the Life, Death, and Beyond International Conference in Crete, Greece, and she teaches classes and is a visiting medium at Lilydale, New York during their summer program. She's also a presenter at the IANDS Conferences and has created many training programs, including spiritual mentoring, long-distance training, workshops, and retreats. Sarina discovered her gifts through her own tragedy, the passing of her 7-year-old son in March 2007. She learned that her son did not really die. He was still very close, and he led her to her incredible gifts. So listen to my moving, emotional, even at times funny due to Sarina's great kind of vibrant personality conversation. And stay on till the end after Sarina does the normal closing of where listeners can find her and follow her, because she shares kind of a really adorable, kind of special and moving memory of her son, JT. So now, here is my conversation with Sarina Baptista. Welcome to What the F Just Happened? I'm your host, Liz Enton. If you listened to the intro, you know my story. If not, here's a brief summary. I'm a sciencey skeptic, and when my dad died, I took a shot in the dark and decided to investigate if there was any possible evidence of an afterlife. I assumed that was as realistic as Santa Claus, but I was desperate. However, I was so blown away by what I discovered that I wrote a book and launched this podcast. In this podcast, I'll be talking to some fairly normal people about some really weird stuff. I speak with everyone from psychic mediums and afterlife researchers to ordinary people who've had some inexplicable experiences. So come, listen. There's no need to draw any final conclusions. Keep an open mind and wonder, what the F just happened? Hey everyone! I'm really excited to let you know about the science and spirituality salons I'm now hosting. During these intimate events, a scientifically verified psychic medium will give all of you readings, and I will give a talk on the science and evidence that changed my mind about an afterlife. This will also be an amazing opportunity to get to meet some of you in person or virtually, and to share more about all the science and data that transformed my worldview and got me through my worst days. These can be hosted in your home, in a nearby cafe with a private room, or they can even be virtual. I've hosted a few already, and they were really special, fascinating, emotional, evidential. So if you're interested in getting a small group together over dinner, brunch, drinks, coffee, to learn more about the science and to get evidential medium readings, send me an email at hello@wtfjusthappened.net and put science and spirituality in the title. Hi, so I am now speaking with Sarina Baptista, evidential psychic medium, and I met her at the IANDS Conference, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. So welcome, Sarina.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Liz. I have been looking forward to this for a really long time.
Me too. I know we got to talk a little at the conference, but not as much as I would have liked. So now we're going to get to really get into all the stuff I wanted to talk with you about.
I love it.
So I just want to ask, first of all, when did you first realize you were a psychic medium?
I wish that I had just awakened one day and could start talking with the other side. But actually, what happened was a tragedy in our family. Our 7-year-old son, JT, passed very suddenly. And I knew that there was purpose in it. I knew there was a reason, but had no idea. I had no idea where it was going to lead me. And it wasn't until about 6 months, five and a half, 6 months later that I was actually talking with a medium on the phone. I'd never had a medium session before, but I said, dang it, I want to talk to my kid. And so I scheduled it and was talking with her, and she said, oh, did you know you're a medium? You're the bridge between this world and the next. And I was stunned. I didn't really think about that before. Of course, it made sense, but it was such a brand new world for me. And so I asked, okay, what do you do then? Does this just happen automatically? And she said, no, training, training, training. And so I immediately got into 2 different training programs, a group training and then a one-on-one mentorship, and it started to happen very, very quickly. It more quickly than actually what I wanted to have happen, because I had kids starting to come to me from the other side just a month into my training, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was fumbling through it and really working very hard to be clear, working hard to get those messages, because I knew that this is what I needed to do. I needed to be a medium. I needed to help parents and other people who have lost loved ones as well. I need them to understand that, just like with JT, they are so very close to us. And I know JT was right there at the time. I did not have connection with him. It was a bit. Remember, I was only 6 months into my grief, so it took a longer time to get connected with JT. But I'll tell you, it was worth it. That conversation, that very first conversation that we had after I really could connect with him and really hear him, it melts my heart to even think about it now. But it was, it was work. You have to practice it every day. You have to practice connection every day. You have to keep your frequency high. There's a lot that goes into it. But I'm very, very grateful that I was led to do this and that this is my purpose now.
So first of all, I just want to say I'm so sorry for the passing of JT. I know that words are not adequate, but I'm sorry that
Thank
you went
you.
through that, of course. And so you went to a medium 6 months after his passing.
Yes.
Had you ever been to a medium before that? Did you?
No. No, I had not, and, I was very apprehensive. I remember back in my 30s, it was actually I was 30 years old, when I went to a psychic because I was with a guy at the time. I wanted to know, is this my true love, and all of that, and I went to the psychic. She was very accurate, by the way, but I did not connect with that time with, loved ones on the other side. She was strictly a psychic, and so I hadn't ever experienced talking with a medium before. I had no idea what to anticipate, what to expect. I let her do the meeting, I let her run the session, and man, it was very profound.
So you thought this medium was real from the reading. What made you think she was real? Were there any bits of evidence that you were kind of like, whoa, like, holy
Yes. Yeah, and that's the difference between an evidential medium and a regular medium, is that they do present that evidence, that irrefutable information. And the piece that she gave to me, where I really knew, I mean, she was on the money with a lot of the things, and the very piece that was just like, oh yes, this is my son, was that she started smelling something, a very foul odor, and she said, I smell dirty socks. And I started to laugh because it was one of the ways that JT let me know he was around. He would give me the smell of his dirty laundry. I'm serious. I would walk into his room and I would just get overwhelmed with this smell of dirty laundry. And I think it's absolutely hysterical now because I was on his case all the time about put that dirty underwear in the hamper. And I kept looking for that dirty underwear, those dirty socks. Before I knew it was him, I kept looking for them. Everything had been cleaned. There was nothing dirty in that room. There was no reason for that smell. And yet there it was. And it didn't just happen in his room, it happened elsewhere too. And I learned later, once I had connection with him, that that was him truly, and also through this medium. And after I finished laughing and I said, yeah, that's what he gives me is is the smell of his dirty socks. We both had a good laugh. But that was one of the really big things that she gave me, that I knew that she was legitimate. So I was actually, we would have spotty conversations. I mean, I practice every day. Every day I would do a meditation. I would clear my energy and I would ask for one of my guides to come in, or if I was working with someone who had passed, I'd ask them to come in to get messages. And I would also ask for JT to come in. And in the beginning it was, I am clairaudient, so I could hear. But it was, again, spotty. I would hear one word at a time. So in order to complete a sentence, I'd have to ask him, okay, JT, what is the first word of the sentence? Okay, JT, what is the second word of the sentence? It was so painstaking, and it was just frustrating because I thought, wow, I can hear everybody else very, very clearly, have conversations with them. Why can't I hear my son that clearly? And again, it was because of the grief. I was still processing the grief, which is what you do. I didn't get a get out of jail free card just because I had connection with him. I still had to process my grief. So I remember the exact time when we had that conversation, and I was driving down the highway and I was not paying attention to my speed. I was coming up to this rise in the highway. It's just a two-laner, and just had the music up, and I heard in my head, "Slow down." And it was JT, and I'm going, "Oh my gosh, is that you, JT?" He says, "Yeah, slow down." And so I did, and right as I came over the rise, there was a sheriff right there. And so I'm going, "Whoa, buddy, thank you for saving me." I mean, it would have been my fault, but thank you for reminding me I need to pay attention to my speed. And he said, "No problem, Mom." And I heard the entire thing. "No problem, Mom." I heard it, and I said, "Whoa, I can hear you. I heard that entire thing." He says, "Yes, it's now a conversation." And he says, "Let's talk." And so we started talking, and just I was asking him questions about where he was and what he was doing, and there was just so much. It was just so beautiful. It was just so amazing. And to be able to hear him so clearly, like he was right there with me, right there in the car. I will remember that day. It was just an amazing day.
Oh, definitely got chills from that. So, where was he and what was he doing?
Right?
Like,
So
that's the question we all want to
I
know.
know. Where are we going to be, right? Well, funny enough, I know we're going to talk about books later, but he had me write this book, My View from Heaven, which was him channeling all of that information to me about where he was, about why we come here, what our purpose is. But really, where he is in this high frequency space. He is a very advanced soul, he's a very old soul. And so his frequency is very high. He is one of the master teacher, master guides. And so, and he is my master teacher, master guide. And he is also a master teacher, master guide for others as well. And so he deals with things on a very high level. I remember, though, asking him, "Well, what are you doing?" And he showed himself with a ball of fire in he had his arms out like this, and he said, "I'm playing." And he had a ball of fire in his hands. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm creating." And I just thought that was so cool. I said, "Oh, wow, we get to create there?" And he says, "Oh, we create all the time. What do you think your world is made of?" Right? It's a bunch of creations. And so that was the beginning of the awareness that I had that, hey, I'm a co-creator. I can create here too. I don't have to be on the other side. And he taught me that. And that again is in this book too, My View from Heaven, which I had a lot of. It was a very interesting book to write. Some of the concepts that he gave me to put into this book were literally out of this world. I had to step away from the computer for a minute or two and absorb the information and then come back. And so it really was wild information about, again, the origins of who we are. And very, very fascinating. And not only that, but again, we have so much purpose here. We all have this purpose. We all come here for purpose. And no life is without purpose. And that was a huge, huge thing for people who may not feel like they're like they have worth or like they're really doing anything here. They are just by being here. You are serving a function here. And so I highly recommend that people take a look at that and really value who they are and value that they said they wanted to come here. They said they wanted to be a part of this elaborate thing that we're doing here. And again, he describes so much of that in that book.
And I do want to ask you a little bit about maybe what his purpose was, as much as you'd like to share, because I know there are a lot of listeners who it just feels so wrong and so unfair, the loss that they had, the timing of it, the
Yes.
situation. Everyone has their own story, but there's a lot of losses that we really rip us in the heart that we experience beyond. I don't want to say normal loss is horrible, but losses that feel
Right.
totally meaningless and totally unfair. And
Right.
it seems like you're
Yes.
saying it's a different story than that.
That is what I have learned from JT and others. It's not just him that I'm learning this from because I am a skeptic. I actually was a software engineer. So I have this brain, this logical part of my brain that doesn't just accept things at face value. It just because someone said it. And even though it's my kid, I trust him implicitly. I thought, I just don't know about this. So I started doing some reading of like Michael Newton's work, which is wonderful, wonderful work. Brian Weiss, another wonderful, wonderful teacher and author, and just going through a lot of that, and it all came together as the same things that JT was talking about. The other thing, I had a personal experience with the idea that we come here for purpose, and it was his purpose to leave at 7 years old. And that was a life between lives regression. And it was just 4 months after JT left, and I was still so raw. And the way that it happened too, you know that there was divine intervention. You know that it was somebody was pulling the strings and getting me this appointment because when I called the local person that I found in my area who did life between life regressions, on the recording it said that there was a 6 month wait. And I thought, oh my God, I don't think I can wait 6 months to see him, to find out what really this was all about, because I had other intuitive people telling me, oh, you agreed to this with JT. And I thought, what mother agrees to have their kid leave? And he died from the flu, so it wasn't something earth shattering. It was a dang flu. And so who agrees to this? But people kept saying, oh, you agreed to this and he has big plans for you. And it would drive me crazy when people would say that they were just trying to help, but they couldn't get any more information. And I know now that's because he was withholding that because I was supposed to discover it. But anyway, so called, left a message to get a life between lives regression. Was expecting not to hear back. Within 5 minutes, they called me back and they said they had a cancellation. Imagine that, for next week. And would you want to take it? I jumped at the chance and I said, yes, absolutely. And so I did. The following week, I went down to where this woman was. And it's Linda Backman, by the way. I love Linda. And I had this incredible experience of JT coming in the state where I was in between lives, and me asking him the question, okay, bud, did we agree to this? And instantly we were in front of this window looking in, and I could see our souls in there, the souls of our immediate family, my husband, JT, his sister, his brother, and me sitting around this table, are the energy of our souls. And I heard myself say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, let's do it, knowing that this was the answer to the question. I agreed to it. He showed that to me in that Life Between Lives regression. I was, it messed me up for a while, because then I thought, well, who am I then? Am I, I'm this soul, but I'm also a grieving mom. But I did this to myself. There was a lot going on.
Oh
What were you
no.
thinking? I think
Oh,
that they were all smoking crack up there or something, because it's just these decisions I mean, and that's a joke, of course, right? Because in that space of higher frequency, we see everything so clearly. In our incarnations, in our myopic view here, we don't see the overall piece there. Now, I know now that, again, JT, very high soul, he was not going to be here for a long time. He does not like to be in body. He doesn't like to be in a body, and he was going to leave early. It just was a matter of when that was going to be. But he did not like to be here. He preferred to be on the other side. So his full purpose of coming into incarnation as JT and leaving early was to wake me up. It was so that I could become who I was supposed to be. Now, there were other lessons, of course, too, for his siblings, for his friends, for his dad. There was a ton of other things as well. But for me, that was the entire purpose of it. And to have that connection with him, and he promised me, before we came into this incarnation, he said, okay, when I leave, you and I will have connection. And you're going to have to learn how to do it, of course, but you and I will have that, and I will never leave you. And that was the only way that I would agree to it, is to say, no, you have to be with me. You have to let me know that you're around. You have to be very clear. Otherwise, I'm not doing this. So luckily, I did have the foresight to to request that, or to demand that, more like that I have that connection with him regardless.
if you don't mind my asking, I know a lot of parents who've lost a child have told me they realized there were a lot of signs along the way before their child passed, that just a higher level of maturity, or some would say, I'm not going to be here for longer. Looking back, was there
Yes.
any signs? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Very. Yeah. Looking at it, it's unnerving now, to think about it. But about 2 weeks before he left, he just got serious. Just had this serious demeanor. The kid was 7, and he was just so serious, so mature. He just acted very, very differently. And then the night before he actually left, he because he was having trouble with the flu, and he just was so uncomfortable, and we were trying so many different things to get him comfortable. And at one point, his sister had the flu too. His younger sister, younger by 2 years, she was 5. She had the flu too. She had a fever. She was throwing up. He was not. And so I wasn't so concerned about him. but I was taking care of his sister and he came rushing into the room. He says, "Mom, I don't think I'm going to make it." And I thought, "What in the heck did you just say? What do you mean you don't think you're going to make it?" And then he just blew it off. He goes, "Oh, no, no, I didn't really mean that. I didn't really mean that." And I thought, and then I didn't even think about it until later. And the way that it all happened too, because I had had food poisoning that day, the day before he left. And that was definitely created as well, because I really did want to get him to the hospital. I was concerned about him, but I was so sick. I was so sick that I couldn't do it, and I knew that if he was going to go to the hospital, it was going to have to be me that takes him. He was definitely a mama's boy, and he would have been terrified otherwise. Now I know now. He told me later that he did not want. He was leaving. He was going to go regardless. And he did not want to go in the hospital. He wanted to be in his home when he left. And so that's why I got so sick and I had, convulsions. I was so sick. And it was about 11 o'clock the night before he left that my fever broke. I was finally able to go in and take a look at him and ask how he was doing and check on his sister and all of that. And so I spent the rest, his sister was asleep. I spent the rest of the time with him, and he just couldn't get comfortable. He couldn't get to sleep. And it was about 3:30 in the morning when we were laying in his room. I was in his brother's bed. His brother was downstairs because I wanted to keep them separate because his brother wasn't sick. And I was laying in bed. I was just about asleep, and he pops up in bed and he says, "Mom, go to your room." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? You want to go to the big bed? See, we had a big Cal King bed. You want to go to see if you can sleep better?" He goes, "No, you go to your room. You go to your room. I want to watch TV." He knew that I couldn't sleep with a TV on. And this kid would never have sent me out of the room. He was feeling horrible. Again, he was a mama's boy. He would want me to stay there. And I was sick all day, sleep deprived, didn't even think about it. I said, "Okay, bud, I'll go ahead and go to my room and I'll check on you in a little bit. Love you." I remember saying that. "Love you, bud." He says, "Love you, mom." And I went into my room and I fell asleep for a couple of hours. Woke up at 6 a.m. and was heading to the restroom, and I had this thought: what if I go in and he's not alive? Again, where does that come from? Where does that come from? I know now it came from spirit. They were trying to prepare me. And so I did go in and check on him, and he wasn't breathing. And so again, we started CPR, the whole bit. He wasn't coming back. He was not going to be coming back as much as we tried. First responders tried, the hospital tried. It was like a 2-hour thing. They were trying to bring him back, and he was not coming back. But those are the very, very clear indications that he knew subconsciously, whatever. He knew that he was leaving.
Yeah, my heart to you and your family.
Thank you.
The human state it's not easy. And,
No.
One day on the other side, we'll all be like, this was a hard thing.
Wasn't that fun?
We did it. Wasn't it fun? We learned a lot. Yeah. And we have to, have humor and lightness, or we just won't make it,
Yes. We certainly wouldn't come back.
No.
If we didn't have that. "Oh, wow. Okay. This is what I was supposed to learn. Oh, okay. I did this lesson really, really well. Didn't do this one so great. So maybe next time I'll do that one and I'll try that again." If we didn't have that sight from that higher perspective, then I don't think we'd come back.
I don't think I would, and I don't think I enjoy my life because of humor and, ability to feel a purpose. But yeah, without that, just, you have to keep irony, I guess, to everything.
Yes.
You just won't go on. You just won't. And so I want to ask you, you said he wasn't your first conversation or realization as a medium was not a conversation with JT. You started getting different messages. What were
Yes.
some of the first messages that you got? Or I'd say the very first that you started to
I
be
will,
like,
yes.
what the fuck? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I was shocked with because again, 1 month after I started training, kids started coming to me from the other side. Now I was part of grieving mom groups, and I didn't know how to control what I was doing yet. I learned later how to set boundaries and all of that. But
Can I just ask you one quick question so we can understand
sure,
the trajectory? You
yes.
weren't getting messages. You decided to start taking classes based on the medium reading you had. Like
Yes,
you
training
okay.
first. Yes,
Okay, got
absolutely.
it.
Now,
Okay.
and now JT was giving me different signs, but it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't conversation, it wasn't communication. I really don't call it communication until I started training. Yeah. And so this kid who came to me, he started bugging me when I was sleeping, and at first I thought it was JT. Again, a month in, had no idea what I was doing. I knew enough to, get clear and to ask questions, and it was again hit and miss a lot a month in, and so I found out. I said to JT, I said, "What the heck are you doing waking me up in the middle of the night? Don't do that." And he says, "It's not me, mom." So I did hear that part from him. He said, "It's not me, mom." And I thought, well, who the heck is this? And so I got the energy, I guess, the information that it was this kid who had committed suicide. And I knew his mom from one of the grieving mom groups. And I thought, well, gosh, what am I going to do? He is really insistent. And of course he's insistent. He took his own life and he needed his mom to know that he was okay. That's so important. And I have learned that those, well, regardless of how our kids leave, they want us to know they're okay, but especially if they leave by their own hand. And so I was able to get a message to her. It was so awkward because the people in this group did not know that I was a medium yet. I wasn't ready to come out again a month in to training, and I didn't know how they would respond. It turned out they did not respond very well to my mediumship. But this woman, she did call me back, and I said, I have your son here, and he really needs you to know that he's okay. He needs to give you some information. And again, it was like one word, and a lot of feeling. I could. He gave me a lot of feeling. I was also clairsentient, which is that I could feel everything. And so he gave me feelings, and he would drop these words into my head. And of course, she's this crazy lady saying that she's talking to your son, so she said, well, if that's him, then ask him what color the cat is that's sitting next to me. And he said gray, and I said gray, and there was just silence on the other end of the phone. And she said, yes, the cat is gray. Now there's a lot of gray cats out there, right? But we knew at that point, and he did his best to give me information. And again, for me to even get that word after just being in 1 month of training was really spectacular. And I have to say, that spirit, that they really really help us. They want us to get this communication. They want us to be clear and to give their messages to their loved ones here, so they will do just about anything to get that done. And that's what he did. He was super clear, which I was so grateful for, because if that had gone south, I might have just hung the shingle up, and said, no, not going to do it. So I'm very grateful for that.
And you mentioned you were getting signs from JT. What were some of the signs you started getting, and what was your most amazing sign?
Oh boy, that kid worked overtime, I'll tell you. There were lots in the beginning. He would move. He loved to collect little matchbox cars, and we had a bunch of them up on this high shelf in his room. Now, his brother was 3 at the time, could not reach this shelf. And even climbing up on the bed, he wasn't able to reach this shelf. And I'd find these matchbox cars in the middle of the hallway. So, not even in his room, in the middle of the hallway. And so he would move things around like that. He also, it was just amazing, some of the smell, how he gave me the smell. And he would also give me a sensation of hugging me when I was crying. I would feel this vibration on my hips. And it's basically where he would be hugging me at his height, would be around my hips. So I would feel that a lot when I was crying, and missing him. The biggest one, though, there were a couple of them, but the biggest really was when I was at the cemetery one day, and it was probably about 5 weeks in, maybe about 5 weeks into, after he had passed. And I would spend a lot of time at the cemetery. Moms do that, we think our kids are there, and he would laugh at me later, and he would say, "Mom, I'm not there." And he even would turn the sprinklers on to get me to leave the cemetery so I wouldn't stay there, because he says, "Mom, I'm not there anymore. I'm with you." And at the time I would say, "No, but this is where I left you. This is the last place that I left you. So yeah, I'm coming here regardless." But even before that, so that was after I had connection with him. Way before that, 5 or 6 weeks after he left, I was having one of those days where I was just pounding, literally pounding the ground, pounding his grave, screaming. And I found that this is one thing you can do at the cemetery. People don't bother you. They don't look at you funny. They understand that you're grieving. And so I could really express my grief there and my anger. And in the middle of my pounding, something caught my eye. And I looked up and I got quiet and I kind of hunched down a little bit, and a dragonfly zipped by. And I thought, "Ooh, that's kind of cool." So I kept myself quiet, and he zipped by this way. I said, "Oh, that's really neat. I wonder what he's doing." And then he came in front of me and he danced. He danced in front of me. And at that point, I knew that it was JT, and I knew he was letting me know that he was okay. Just a day later, we were having the very last Lego Club meeting in his honor. He started a Lego Club group with our homeschool group, and this was the very last one we were going to have. And this group meant a lot to him. And so it was very, very difficult to get through, obviously, again, 5 or 6 weeks later. And I did it. His friends did it. Everybody came. We were putting all of the Legos away, and they have those boards that you can put Legos on, and they stick to, you can put them in there. And one of his friends was holding one of the boards and said, "Dragonfly." And I said, "What do you mean?" And I thought he was pointing to a little Lego that had a little bird on it. And I said, "That's a bird." And I put my finger down to touch the Lego that had the bird on it, little picture of a bird. I said, "Do you mean this?" And at that point, I hadn't even seen it. A dragonfly was on the board, hopped up onto my finger, and just tucked its wings in and just looked at me. And I thought, "Oh my god." And so I explained to his friends. I said, "This is JT. This is him letting us know that he's okay." And so dragonflies became his thing. He would come as dragonflies to me and my husband, and It was always so wonderful to see them. At the time, we were in Colorado, so I had to say goodbye to the dragonflies in the winter. But he would give me dragonflies other ways. He would show me pictures of them, or something along those lines. I'm in Florida now, so I have year-round dragonflies. I'm so happy. But I was visiting Colorado very recently, and they've had enough cold there that the dragonflies are not out. And I was driving with my daughter. My daughter is still in Colorado, and right in front of us is this truck that has a big dragonfly on the tailgate. And I thought, oh, I guess he's letting us know that he's here too. So, I mean, he would just go over and above, just to let me know that he was around. He had so many different ways to do it, but the dragonfly really was just amazing. Dragonflies don't do that. They don't hop up on a person's finger and tuck their wings in. I mean, uh, they usually they want to be away from humans, So when you have those kinds of interactions, those kinds of signs that our loved ones bring us, then you know that that's them. Absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you about the dragonfly because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about signs like that, like dragonflies, birds, and I had those misconceptions early on learning about signs too. Some people think, or you're not saying he is a dragonfly now. He
No.
sends dragonflies. How
Yes.
how does that work?
So it's what they call an overshadowing. That's how he explained it to me because I'm curious. I'm a skeptic. So I had to ask, how are you doing this? How do other people do this? Yeah, they don't put their soul or their energy into whatever it is, but they overshadow it, which means I hate to say control it because that's not really a great word, but they manage it. They're allowed to do this. It is part of the laws of the universe that they can do this. And so they will have the bird swoop down, have the dragonfly jump up on your finger, have a swarm of birds. I know people who get swarms of birds as messengers, things like that. So yeah, they don't become it, but they overshadow it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's definitely a misconception where at first I was
Yes.
reading this, I'm like, you're trying to say my dad's a bird. Come on, that makes no sense.
No,
So
no.
that's great. While doing readings for other people, what is the most verified, strongest evidence that you got?
Wow, that's a great question. There's been so many different things that have happened. I feel the strongest one, and I did talk about this when I was at the IANDS conference in September, because this one blew me away. I had just started doing what they call mediumship demonstrations, gallery readings, and it was at this little coffee shop that was also a bookstore. And I would just invite people to come in and start, just do my thing, and people would sit down and get their readings. And so there was this one woman who came through, and she said she was the sister of someone in the audience, and that she had a very traumatic death. And so I just voiced this, and I said, anybody taking this now, what they usually do for me in gallery readings is that they meaning spirit will show me who it belongs to.
Clarify, a gallery reading is a group reading as a
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's what they call mediumship demonstrations, or stage demonstrations, where you're on stage, and you it's up to spirit who gets those readings. It's not up to us. We don't choose it. So in those demonstrations, not everybody might get a reading, and so in this particular case, the woman who was the sister who had a traumatic death, she showed me, it was right down the center aisle of the place, and it was at the end of the aisle. And I said, she's showing down there. Does anybody down there? Do you understand what I'm saying? Sister, traumatic death. And nobody took this woman. Nobody would claim her. And so I said, well, let me get a little bit more information. And I looked away from that center aisle. And I'm looking off to the side. I'm trying to get more information. Okay, she's blonde. She's, starting to get the physical things. They call my attention to the center of the aisle now. And now there's a man standing there who came in to get a latte.
A man who's living, not
Yes, a man
a
who's
spirit.
living, who came in to get his latte, was not part of the demonstration, did not come in for a reading, did not even know we were doing it. He just went to the coffee shop to get his latte. And he said, my sister had a traumatic death. And he was right in the position where she showed me. And it was his sister who was coming through. And I mean, at first I was yelling at her going, could you have waited just a little bit until he was there? Because then you're second guessing yourself and you're going, well, is this, did you give me the correct information? Yes, she had. And without, he had no idea what was going on. And he was very stunned, obviously, but she proceeded to give him a message about her passing, about where that she's okay, evidence and all of that. And again, he said, I just came in to get my coffee. And he was amazed. And I am so grateful to Spirit for doing things like that. They have they'll stop at nothing to get us that information. She probably wished that I would have waited just a couple minutes to start talking, but she was going to do this because, again, if she had waited and somebody else came through, that guy would have been gone. He would have got his coffee and left because that was his plan. So I just love when Spirit does that. I love it. There was another one too in another demonstration, a mediumship demonstration. And it was this father, and he was looking for his son, and showed me a picture of the son when he was a little boy. He was in overalls, and he had his German Shepherd with him. I mean, I could see it just so clearly. Nobody took this guy. And so I kept going and kept describing everything. And this woman raises her hand, and she said, I think that's my father. And I said, you don't look like a boy to me. And she said, he wanted boys. My name is Jackie. My sister's name is Marky, and all the, so all the girls had boy names, and this was him. And that is how he got her to accept that it was him, because he said that if I had come through any other way, and if I had said it any other way, she wouldn't have believed that it was me. And she sent me the picture later. She dug it out, and there was the picture of her. She had cropped hair, blonde hair. She had her overalls, and the dog was next to her. So she sent that exact picture to me, and I said, "Yep, that's exactly what I saw."
Hi, I will be attending the IANDS International Association for Near-Death Studies Conference, and I would love to invite all of you. I will let Kimberly Braun, who had an NDE and is the panelist, coordinator, and mentor for this conference, tell you more about it now.
Everyone that is there for the reasons of why are we here in this world? What is this world about? And how is this world, as we define it, part of something larger? So these individuals that present, and I'm blessed to be among them again, will share not only their experience, but how all their life is changed and continues to change, affected by these experiences. Powerful conference.
And there were some really kind of big names there too. Last year, I got to meet, excuse my little bit of name dropping, but Dr. Bruce Grayson, which for me was really exciting. So pretty big scientists are involved too. And it's very serious. I mean, along with the spiritual component, it's very evidence-based too and research-based.
I encourage you to go to the link to the conference, which is conference.iands.org. And the lineup for the speakers is presented there really in a very clear way. Since I'm working with the panelists, I can name a couple of the panel titles. So we grouped them into themes this year. Trauma panel, so those that have experienced trauma, loss of a loved one fits right in that category. How NDEs, STEs, and OBEs changed their life purpose. After effects of an NDE and family dynamics. Special abilities is another panel on mediumship. But if you look at the schedule, you'll see there's scientific oriented panels as well. What those would be is that they would be the presentation of the fruit of the research that these particular scientists have found when they've been studying NDEs.
Amber Kasich, who has been on this podcast, she and I are going to be doing a presentation as well at the conference. It's so nice to see some of all of you who listen and support.
And you can get tickets at the website conference.iands.org. And just as a note, there's always member specials. So being a member of IANDS is very inexpensive.
And even the guy coming in to get the latte to go.
Yes.
Maybe that's the only time. Everyone else there was at your demonstration. Most likely they've gone to medium readings other times. This might be something that was never on his radar, never even thought.
Yes, it wasn't. He, again, you should have seen how white he got, because he was not expecting a medium to be giving him a reading. That definitely was not what his plan was, but that was what her plan was. They are definitely inventive. They're definitely inventive. They and they do, again, they do amazing things. There was one that when I was learning how to do this, every night I would sit in front of the computer and I would do what I called a spirit writing session, and I would invite a spirit in and take their message. It wasn't anything. It was just for me to practice my hearing. It wasn't for me to give the message. One time this energy came in and she said her name was Angel. And I said, "Are you an angel or is that your name?" And she said, "No, that's my name." And she said, "I have my brother here too." And so I could tell they were teenagers. And so I told her, I said, "I cannot just call up your mom and say, by the way, I have your dead kids here and they want to give you a message." You have to, after that one time that I did that, I learned that's not the way to do it. People don't respond very well to that. So I said, Angel, you have to get your mom to cross my path. You have to get that done. And then I will be glad, I will be very happy to put myself out there, let her know. Within a week, that woman had joined the grieving moms group that I was a part of, and talked about her daughter Angel and her son Daniel. And so I said, "Okay, what are you gonna do?" I said, "Okay, you did your part, I will do mine." And so I did reach out to her. They were killed in a very tragic highway accident. Both of them were automatic, just instantly killed in the accident, and the mother really needed to know that they were okay. And so again, spirit will do what spirit needs to do to get that message. Yep, get that message to you.
It's powerful. And was the mother receptive to this?
She was, yes, she was. It was hard for her too. She did have a religious background, but again, when you lose a kid, all bets are off. And however, you can get information about where your child is, you're going to take it within reason, of course. I know that was the case for me. It was, all bets were off. You have to reinvent yourself. You have to reinvent what your beliefs are, especially if you've had a more strict upbringing. I knew there were past lives before JT left. I knew some of this stuff, but certainly not to the extent that I have learned since he passed.
So you always thought there was an afterlife?
Yes, and I did. And I thought I might be psychic. I had prophetic dreams when I was in my 20s. to the point where I really needed to close those down because they were a little bit scary and about events that were going to happen. And so I, I said, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. I was living in California at the time and I would have these earthquake dreams. And within a couple of days, there would be an earthquake somewhere. And so but it was very unnerving. I'd have the dream and then I'd sleep in my clothing, barely sleep. It was just really unnerving. And I finally said, I can't do this anymore. I've got to shut this down. And so I did. I blocked it. So, I mean, I knew that I had something, but certainly I had no idea to the extent, no idea.
And you said you always knew there were past lives. How did you know that?
That was thanks to Brian Weiss. I went to see him. I was living in the Bay Area, and I went to see him in San Francisco, and it was it was one of those very profound things, those revelation type events, and I got to see some past lives. He does a group regression, and they were so clear, it was so real, and I knew that it was real. And it was the timing was amazing. The following day, I learned that my dad had terminal cancer. And my dad and I did not have a great relationship. I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't great. And when you get that kind of news, you think, oh my God, I've got to repair this relationship. I've got to do whatever I can to make it okay before he leaves. With that information from Brian Weiss, I was able to not have to focus on that because I knew that we could work on it after my dad left. At that point, I knew that we had done this before. We had done lifetimes before together, and that I didn't have to fix it in this lifetime, and which was good because he was not able to. He was because of a whole bunch of things. He just wasn't able to do that before he left, and since he's left, we've been able to work on it a lot. We've been able to work on that relationship.
So I'm sorry for the loss of your father.
Thank you.
And of course, and second of all, it's very interesting. You were already open. You went to Brian Weiss way before the passing of JT, and it's interesting that it was like you were always sort of being pushed on this path.
Absolutely. It was always this thing that I knew it was there. And in fact, when JT left, was I knew there was an answer somewhere. This was before I talked to the medium, before I had the life between lives regression, and I said to myself, somebody has to know where they are, what happens. And I thought, oh, Brian Weiss probably knows. And so I looked up on the computer where he was going to be, and he was going to be in Seattle. I was in the Bay Area again. I'm sorry, not Bay Area. I was in Colorado. And he was going to be in Seattle. And I was going to fly to Seattle to go see him at this event. He was going to be there with somebody else I'd never heard of. And his name's John Holland. And I don't know if you know John Holland, but he is a medium.
I
and
know him well.
Yeah.
I'm with the Forever Family Foundation as one of the volunteers, and John is one of our mediums. So
He is
wonderful.
amazing. Yes. And so he was going to be in Seattle with Brian Weiss. And so I thought, okay, I'm going. I'm going to go. I didn't know anything about John Holland, though. And so I thought, maybe I ought to look up about him. So I got onto his website. And guess what? He was going to be in my town in a couple of weeks. Imagine that, right? This is how it went. I mean, it just was, as long as I followed what I called the breadcrumbs, as long as I followed the breadcrumbs JT was putting down, then I was able to find where I needed to go to get this information. So instead of going to Seattle, I decided I would go to John Holland's show. And this was September 2007, just 6 months after JT left. In order to prepare for that, I decided I was going to read Power of the Soul, the book that was currently out. And I was reading a section on clairsentience, and it hit me. Oh my God, I think I can do this. And John goes through a bunch of different things, like, you're clairsentient if. And one of them was, if people in stores, and he's so funny when he does this on stage, because he talks about a something that happened to him in a carpet store, where somebody approached him as if he was an employee. And that happened to me all the time. And so I read this and I had this revelation. Oh my God, I wonder if I can do this. This was right before I had the conversation with the medium. So I still wasn't sure. The following day, I read this. The following day, I go to Walmart and I broke my toe, and I had to use one of the motorized carts. And I was in this aisle and very clearly not an employee. I was in a motorized cart, did not have my dark blue shirt, tan pants, the things that you would with your Walmart employee. And this woman comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, can you tell me where the curlers are?" And I started laughing in my mind. I couldn't laugh right there, but I was laughing at the universe at that point. I'm going, okay, that's the 2x4 I needed. I think I'm on the right track. And then again, a day or so later is when I had the conversation with the medium.
And do you think that people tend to come up to you, or the way John said they come up to him? Do you think it's like the way we just don't communicate flawlessly? There's some drive to come talk to you guys. Like, our loved ones are like, "Oh, go, go." But I don't know. I wonder if there's some drive, or
I
I don't.
believe so. I believe that is the case, that we emit something, right? That we emit that we have answers. And so even if we aren't an employee in a store, we emit the energy that we have answers. And so people are drawn to us. That is my belief.
And now you said you get information first. You felt clairsentient, getting it through feelings, and the strong way seems to be hearing.
Yes, clairaudience, and I discovered that, the day that I had the call with the medium, because, up until then, JT had given me hugs and things like that, so I knew I could feel him. But she said, after she said, "Did you know you're a medium? You are the bridge between this world and the next." And I'm going, "I don't even know what that means." She said, "Your guides say you can hear them." And I said, "No, no, I can't hear them." And she said, "They're saying you can." And at that moment, in a very strong male voice in my head, I heard, "Yes, you can hear us." And I said to her, I said, "Well, I guess I can hear them." That was the first time that had happened, but it was in such a strong male voice. It was undeniable. And so that's when I knew I was also clairaudient. And we have all the clairs. All of us have seeing, feeling, hearing, and knowing, but some of them are more dominant. And so at the time, the feeling and the hearing were more dominant. And as I went through training, I trained the others. So now I am also clairvoyant, and I'm also claircognizant.
And claircognizant is knowing,
Knowing,
just that inner
yes,
knowing.
yes.
How does the sensory input, like clairaudience, the hearing, how does it? How is it experientially different for you than hearing me talk right now, or hearing a person?
Right. It is in my head. It's like, for many people, it might be their own voice. For me, like I said, it was a very strong male voice. And since then, it's been different voices. So if it's a child, I will hear a child's voice. If it's a woman, I'll hear a woman's voice. Older, I'll hear that inflection as well. Accents, I'll hear accents. So for me, it's not outside of me, it's in my head that they're talking. Makes you
And
think you're going
now,
crazy.
and it feels different that if you like. I mean, I know I'm one of the people that tells myself stories in my voice, and it's different than that.
Yes, quite. Yes. In my when I talk to myself, which we do, it's in my voice. It's in my own voice. It's not in these other voices. It never was in these other voices. So that's how I know that it's from them. People who do hear it in their own voice, they have a harder time with that differentiation, and it's just a matter of again of training. Of training it so that so that you have a better idea of what's me and what's not me.
And I saw on your website that you do readings of animals. So I know that's a question. Our animals are on the other side too. We'll see them again.
Yes, they are part of this energy system, and so they will be there. Now, that very interesting thing about animals, domestic animals, is that they can hang out in the space with us after they leave for a bit. They don't have to like cross over or raise their frequency. They're already at high frequency. They're already in that space. So what they do is they can give us a lot of evidence, a lot of information about themselves, in that space after they leave. I love talking with animals. They are very expressive. They will tell it to you like it is. And I had a cat, older cat, and he got sick, which older cats do. And I did have connection with him, and I was asking, "Do you want me to take care of this for you? Do you want me to help you along, help you in transition?" And he said, "No, I want to do this myself." And he was emphatic about it, about going through all of it on his own. And it was so miserable to watch. I kept asking him, and obviously, he's responding in my mind psychically, and he kept saying, "No, I want to do it my way." And I said, "Okay." So he did pass. And the next day, I was in the bathroom and I was getting ready for the day. And was thinking about him, and I thought, "Oh my God, did I make the right decision? Was I supposed to help him? Did I hear it wrong? Did I make him suffer longer than what he wanted to suffer?" And at that point, at that moment, I heard his meow outside of me. It was outside of me. It wasn't even in my head. It was in the room. I heard his meow. Now, his meow was very, very distinct. It was very soft, and you could barely hear it. Even when he was in body, you could barely hear it, and it was a very different pitch than any of the other animals. And at the time, I was part of a paranormal group. I was leading the psychic team, and so I immediately grabbed my equipment and I turned on my voice recorder and I said, "Fatso," that was his name. So, "Fatso, was that you?" And I heard his meow again. And again, it was in the room. So I stopped the recording. I listened to it again. And right after I said, "Fatso, was that you?" there's a meow on that recording. So he was very clearly telling me, "Yeah, you did what I needed to do." And that is evidential. I mean, that is physical evidence of animals being on the other side and being able to communicate with us. They're just amazing. Animals are just so incredible.
You heard it like the way you hear clairaudiently. And then you had, as a paranormal investigator, you had EVP recordings, electronic voice phenomenon, which sees if you get any voices from the other side, and so recorded on that was the meow, correct?
Yes,
The same
recorded
meow
on the
you heard.
voice recording. It was a true Class A EVP. Yep,
And there was
absolutely.
no one around who could have been joking and mimicking the meow, and there were no other cats around where it could have been that
Right.
recorded.
No, I was alone on the second floor. I remember that because I'm a skeptic. I'm an engineer. I'm a skeptic. So I opened the door, checked, no cats in the bedroom. And again, I was in the bathroom and I heard it. His meow actually was not through clairaudience. It was outside of me. I could hear it with my physical ear. And that's when you know that the EVP, that you really got an EVP when they can project that into your environment as a voice phenomenon. Yeah.
For you as a medium, experientially, what is the difference for you between communicating with a human versus an animal?
Animals are really funny. Now, first of all, when they leave, they have very high frequency. They come in with high frequency, they leave with high frequency. So it is very easy to connect with them. It actually sometimes is easier to connect with animals on the other side than with humans. Humans, we still sometimes have our hangups and all of that. Now, that also, when you're talking about mediumship work, it's how they are trying to convey who they were here. Animals are very different. They do still convey who they were here, but it's crisper. I find talking with animals can be crisper than talking with humans. The other thing too is sometimes they will come through as they were here, right? Because your person, the person who is asking for information, needs to understand, needs to validate that it's them. So they'll come through with evidence of, like they'll be jumping around, or they'll be licking constantly or snoring, things like that, that they'll give to me that were very specific to that animal. And so they, just like humans, will give you evidence of who they are, which I just think is just amazing. It also helps us to understand that they're part of our energy system as well, and that what they do reincarnate again. They can come back as other animals, as our other animals, especially if there is a strong bond.
You also talked about being part of a paranormal group. Can you tell me just a little bit about that? Like, what was maybe the most interesting?
We had a ton. We aren't together anymore because everybody kind of moved to different states. But we were doing an investigation. There were so many times where we got huge EVPs, and we also had all the video equipment and all of that. But there was a time where there was this gentleman who was hanging out in this office, and he was a hard worker. I mean, he had these heavy boots on, and the office workers who were there, because we come in and we say, okay, what kind of things have you been experiencing? And they say, well, we hear these footsteps, we hear heavy boot footsteps, and we hear breathing and things like that. And so we knew as a paranormal team that this person, the spirit, definitely knew how to manipulate energy if they could.
Wait, so the person with the heavy boots, that was someone who'd passed away. And
Yes.
had you known that normally, or were you getting like the people called you in, said this person used to live here and we're hearing the boots, or you got how did all this information come in?
So when we go into a building, or when we go into an office, whatever it happens to be, we will sit down with the live people who are in the space, and we'll say, what are you experiencing? What's the paranormal activity that you're experiencing? And so one of them said boots, one of them said breathing, one of them said that they just feel like they're being watched all the time. And it wasn't a malicious energy. They didn't feel uncomfortable, but it was, somebody who was hanging out, who probably doesn't necessarily need to hang out there. And so we had all of our equipment set up. There was a group that was sitting at the end of a hallway, and there was a camera at the other end of the hallway, and there was a door next to the camera, and the camera was shooting down towards the group that was sitting down in the hallway, a ways away. And one of the investigators says, "Okay, if you're here, could you let us know you're here? Make your presence known." And at that moment, on the video, actually, you can hear the stomping. You can hear him stomping, and then he slams the door that's beside him, enough with enough force that it shook the camera. Now, there was nobody else there. There were four people in the building. They were all at the end of the hallway. There was nobody there to create the stomping, And they were sitting right there. They can see the end of the hallway. They can see where the camera is, and the camera shakes, and that they got their answer, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty clear.
Yeah, there's the answer. There is a difference between psychic readings, reading the energy of a living person, probabilities, future thoughts, versus medium reading, connecting with the other
Yes.
side. You do both, correct?
Yes.
What are the differences for you? How do you know you're not reading someone psychically when you're getting information about their deceased loved ones?
Well, the loved ones will give you the evidence of who they were. So it's a very different energy. And when I'm doing psychic readings, I'm actually tuning into the person's energy and also to their guide's energy and getting information from their guides. And that is, like I said, a totally different frequency than if you're talking to loved ones. And I learned how to do this. I learned how to determine the different frequencies and with whom I'm speaking. And so I know when I'm talking with a loved one who has passed because of the frequency that they run, or the energy that they run, versus guides and things like that. So, and it is very different. Mediumship is strictly getting information from those people who have passed, and psychic is getting information about your sitter, about the person that you're doing your session for. Now, plenty of times, especially moms, right? Moms will come in and, of course, want to give their kids advice, right? I'm reading for somebody and they ask their mom to come in and give them messages, and of course, mom's going to say, you need to leave that job, or something along those lines. Definitely motherly advice, but that's coming from mom. That is very, very different than if I were to tune in and say, okay, your guides are telling you that it's time to go.
And guides, are they ever our loved ones?
Like JT is my guide, but there's an agreement prior to coming in. Like I said before, JT and I agreed to do this, and he agreed to be my guide. He agreed to be my connection. Most of the time, it is an energy you don't know here, an energy who decided to hang back, probably part of your soul family, and decided to hang back. And they said, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish, and I'm going to stay here to do that. Now, again, sometimes those loved ones who have passed will fill that role as well, but more often than not, it's probably somebody different.
It sounds like, I mean, the way you still communicate with JT so regularly and strongly,
Every day.
that
Yep.
every day. I mean, I think that's something we all would love to be able to do. Can we all do that with our loved
Yes.
ones?
Yes.
How? Any
I
tips?
am a I am a firm believer that we all can do this. I always say I'm not special. I just learned how to do it. Did I have a propensity for it? Of course, because I said this is what I'm going to do. After you leave, JT, is I'm going to help other people connect. But I also help other people to learn to connect. I have lots of training programs, and I have found kind of this, I don't know, you call it prescription recipe. I work with very high guides on the other side, very high teachers. And so I will work with people individually and in groups to help them to connect with the other side, whether it is for their guides or for loved ones. I have specific groups that I run for loved ones, who are those who want to connect with just their loved ones, and then I have other groups who want to connect with their guides, and other groups who want to do it professionally. I train other psychic mediums now too. So one of the ways to do it is, of course, to meditate. Have to meditate. You have to be clear. So clearing your energy, doing chakra clearing, doing frequency clearing, getting rid of the junk that you have picked up throughout the day. And there's some great meditations. I have one. Anyone who signs up on my email list gets a meditation sent to them, which includes this chakra clearing and energy clearing. And very clearly you have to be at the high frequency. And so again, getting rid of the junk, that's one of the things that I help with people, is to move their blocks, to get their blocks out of the way. Because a lot of us, like me, when I had those prophetic dreams and I blocked it, it took me a minute to remove that block. And I worked at it because I knew it. I knew that it was there because I'm the one that put it there. But I knew I needed to remove it in order to get that information and to be at the highest frequency and get as much detail as I can. So definitely meditation. And then asking, setting intention is another one. Asking for your loved one to come forward, and only your loved one, stating intention that only high frequency is allowed around you. A lot of people don't connect because they're afraid of what they're going to connect to. So I always say, only high frequency is allowed around me, and only this person can come communicate with me. And by doing that, you tell the universe what you expect to have happen. You say, none of the riffraff, and only my dad or whoever it is can communicate with me. And by doing that, then again, you set intention, you set the parameters. And I've learned that it's all about that. It's what I say goes. When I set my intention, that is what happens. And so it becomes very clear when you do that, and then start practicing. And that's the other thing. This is a muscle. It's like you wouldn't go out and run a marathon tomorrow. You would train for it, you would lead up to it, and you would exercise those muscles. And so, mediumship, psychic work is the same, whether you're connecting with your guides, with your loved ones, or whomever. It is a muscle that you need to exercise.
This was something I worried about a lot early on. What if our loved ones reincarnate?
Oh, that is a good question. Yes. And I
Yes.
get that a lot. And I had to ask that question because I would have moms coming to me who had miscarriages, stillbirths, and they had been told by other mediums that they weren't able to connect with their children. And that drove me crazy. And so I asked JT, I asked my guides, okay, give me the scoop on that. So I don't know if you've read anything by Michael Newton, but I also adhere to what he believes, and that is that we only bring about 15% of our energy into this incarnation, and the rest of us is still in spirit. And so what that means is that we always, regardless of how long we were here, there is always what I call an energetic imprint of an incarnation. So even if they were 3 weeks old in the womb, or they were birthed not breathing, there is still the imprint, and so we can connect with that imprint regardless of whether they have incarnated again or not. So you can connect with grandma even if you feel she is incarnated as your daughter, or anything like that, because there's always that imprint in the energy space. And I have never had an issue connecting with any miscarriages or stillbirths or older people. That was the other misgiving, that people were told, well, they've been gone for 50 years, so I can't connect with them. That's not true for me. For me, that's not true. Might be true for other people. Not true for me. I have connected with people hundreds of years old, who passed 100 years ago. People doing genealogy who needed information about their relatives wherever. We can do that again because of that imprint. We can connect to that.
Tell us about your books and classes and what people can. I know you told us a little about your classes, so I guess tell us about your books and what you're up
Yes, and believe me, I never thought I was going to be an author, but JT really pushed it,
I
especially
get it. I get it.
right, especially with his book, My View from Heaven, which is his book. And you can tell the only parts in this that are not him speaking, I have italicized. Everything else came from him. And it is an award-winning book. It's won several awards, and it is available at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, a lot of the online, and it might be available in your metaphysical stores. If it's not, ask them to order it. It is available on the wholesale distributing that all of the retailers use. And so, yeah, that's that one. And then the latest one is a book that I wrote. It's called Finding Love and Purpose, Our Journey to Connection Through Healing, or Journey to Healing Through Connection, sorry. And I wrote this with three other beautiful women. All of us have loved ones on the other side. Three of us have children on the other side. One has her husband. And it's all about how we reconnected with our loved ones on the other side, how they came to us, how they gave us the evidence, how they really pushed us into that connection with them. And it also just came out in September, and it's already won awards as well. And that one also is available at all of those places that I just said. But those two are the latest ones, and just both of them just give such hope and an understanding of what our loved ones are doing, and what we are doing here. There's purpose. There's connection. We're all connected. And even if your loved one has left, that's still connection. You're still connected. The relationship doesn't die, even if the person doesn't have that body anymore. The laws of energy cannot be destroyed. It just changes form. And that's what I believe about what happens with us is we just change form. Definitely. And then again, yeah, lots of training. I love to teach people. I love to do readings. I love doing readings, but I also love to teach people so they don't need me anymore. I love to teach them to fish instead of fishing for them. But I'm happy to do readings for people, and also happy to get them connected.
So where can they all find you?
The easiest, I have a lot of different websites for different things. Bridgetohealing.com will get you to my site, which is also sarinabaptista.com, but sometimes my name gets misspelled. And from there, you can get to the training site, which is bridgetohealingcenter.com. But if you go to bridgetohealing.com, then there is a link there that says training website, and you can go and look at all of the training options there. On bridgetohealing.com, it's all about me and the sessions that I offer. I have a huge variety of sessions. I do Akashic records. I do past life readings, lots of healing as well, lots of healing sessions too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been just a pleasure to speak with you and sharing, and thank you for so openly sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Liz, for having me. It was just wonderful to be here and to share JT. I just love sharing my kid. He is just such an amazing soul. And I would say to your listeners too, don't be surprised if he shows up. He often does when people are watching things about him or reading his book. He'll often be there, and will definitely let his presence be known.
Actually, I'm just going to ask you one last question if you would
Sure.
like. Do you want to share a favorite memory of JT with our listeners?
Oh, there's a lot of memories. He was such a hoot. His laugh was just so amazing. He had this, he called it his booty dance, and he would actually, because he was 7, he would do, shake your booty, shake your booty. and he would do this little booty dance. And when I was first learning to communicate with him, he would show that to me, and just I would just start laughing. And that's what needed to happen. I was taking it so seriously, and he would show me his booty dance, and that would make me laugh. Every time I would laugh. But that's one of the wonderful things that I remember about him is just his laughter. He just helped so many of his friends, and at his funeral, every single person stood up and said he was my best friend, and he helped me with this and that. He would help anybody, and so this he was 7. This just goes to show what a brilliant soul he is, and I totally understand now why he couldn't stick around. Sure wish he did, but I understand. He was just so bright, such a bright light for everybody.
Well, thank you so much. I think that was a really beautiful, special way to end. I feel like we all
Thank
got to know
you.
him some. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's just been wonderful to be here. I so appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to let you know it's finally here. Book 2 in the What the Fuck Just Happened series is ready for pre order on Amazon, and it will be officially live August 15th and then available everywhere. And yes, I can now say that WTF Just Happened is actually a series. That's also super exciting and kind of surreal. This book is titled WTF Just Happened? A Sciencey Skeptic Investigates Even More Evidence of an Afterlife and Fights for Justice with Her Dead Dog. In this book, I continue my exploration of an afterlife. I get some amazing signs, more medium readings. I learn about remote viewing and out of body experiences. I take classes with mediums. And yes, some absolutely inexplicable what the fucks keep happening. And on a side story, that was a different kind of what the fuck. My dog Peanut, who is now unfortunately on the other side, unexpectedly comes in to help fight for justice and becomes kind of famous in the process. It will publish everywhere in ebook and print on August 15th. For now, you can pre-order the ebook on Amazon. To get more information on what the fuck just happened, go to WTFJustHappened.net. There, you can order my book, WTF Just Happened, A Sciencey Skeptic Explores Grief, Healing, and Evidence of an Afterlife. You can learn all about how I came to conclude that there most likely is an afterlife, but you can also learn about the early stages of my grief and the amazing, fascinating people I met along the way. You can read about how much I harassed the mediums and scientists trying to get evidence to see if the mediums were cheating and see if what everyone was saying actually was true. You can also subscribe to our newsletter to stay updated on any new developments and any interesting new what the fuck updates. So if you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. It makes such a difference, especially for a new podcast like this one. And if any of you have had a crazy what the fuck yourself, have any questions, feedback, or just want to say hey, reach out on either Instagram at WTF_just_happened_ or email me at hello@WTFJustHappened.net. I love hearing from all of you. It makes my day hearing your stories and questions and feedback and all of it. And remember, you don't have to draw any final conclusions as you wonder, what the fuck just happened?